Your voice, the one living inside your head right now, is the only voice you truly love, and it's also a voice you've never actually heard. Think about that for a second. You've spoken every single day of your life, millions of words, and yet the sound you carry in your mind as me, that sound doesn't exist to anyone else on earth. They hear something else. A stranger's voice wearing your name. Most people learn this the same way. You record the voice memo, maybe leave a voicemail, and then you play it back, and your stomach drops. That's not me. That can't be me. It's too high, too nasal, too soft, too something. You wince. You delete it. You promise yourself you'll never do that again. Almost everyone has felt this exact discomfort. So we tell ourselves a simple story. The recording is bad. The microphone is cheap. The speaker distorts it. It's technology's fault, but it isn't. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The recording is right. It's your everyday voice that's the illusion. To understand why, you have to follow the sound. When someone else speaks to you, their voice travels through the air, enters your ear, vibrates your eardrum, and your brain interprets it. Simple. One path, one route from mouth to mind. But when you speak, something completely different happens. Your voice reaches your ears in two ways at once. The first way is the same as everyone else. Sound leaves your mouth, moves through the air, and comes back into your ears. That part is normal. The second way is hidden. As you speak, your vocal cords vibrate, and those vibrations travel directly through the bones of your skull, through your jaw, through the dense structures around your ears. This is called bone conduction. And here's the strange part. Bone tends to carry lower frequencies more efficiently than air does. So the version of your voice traveling through your skull arrives deeper, richer, fuller, warmer. Your brain then blends these two signals together, the airborne voice and the bone conducted voice, into a single sound. And that blended sound is what you've believed was your voice for your entire life. But no one else is inside your head. No one else gets the bone conducted version. They only hear the thinner, higher airborne one, the one that horrifies you on the recording. So the recording isn't lying to you. For the first time, it's telling you the truth. You are finally hearing what the rest of the world has heard all along. Let that settle. Every person who has ever loved you, laughed with you, or listened to you has known a version of your voice that you were never allowed to hear, and it goes even deeper than physics. Psychologists have a name for part of this discomfort. It's connected to something called the mere exposure effect. The idea that we tend to prefer things simply because they're familiar. The more we're exposed to something, the more we like it. And you have heard your internal voice thousands of times a day, every day, since before you could talk. So, of course, the recorded version feels wrong. It's not just physically different, it's unfamiliar. And your brain treats unfamiliar as slightly threatening. But there's another layer, and this one is more human than scientific. Your voice isn't just a sound, it's tied to your entire sense of who you are. When you hear the recording, you're not only hearing an unexpected pitch, you're confronting a version of yourself you didn't design, a self that exists outside your control. Researchers studying this reaction have found that a lot of the discomfort isn't really about the sound at all. It's about the gap, the distance between the person you think you are and the person other people actually experience. That gap is unsettling because it hints at something bigger. If you don't even know what your own voice sounds like, what else about yourself are you getting wrong? The way you laugh, the face you make when you're thinking, the tone you use when you're tired. There's an entire version of you that lives only in other people's memories. A you that you will never fully meet. And here's the quiet twist most people never consider. Everyone around you is living inside the exact same illusion. The friend whose voice you love, the parent whose voice means home, the stranger on a podcast. Every single one of them hears themselves differently than you hear them. Each of them is walking around slightly startled by their own recordings, convinced the world is somehow getting them wrong. We are all mildly haunted by a stranger who sounds almost like us. Now think about this the next time you flinch at the voice memo. That reaction, that small wave of embarrassment, is one of the rare moments life hands you a genuinely outside view of yourself. A crack in the mirror, a glimpse of how you actually land in the world. Most of us spend a lifetime trying to see ourselves clearly. We study our faces in photos, we replay our own words, we wonder how we come across. And yeah, the simplest, most honest reflection is sitting right there. In a 5-second recording, we're too uncomfortable to play twice. Maybe that discomfort is worth sitting with because the voice you can't stand isn't a distortion of you. It's the most accurate version of you that exists. The one everyone else has been listening to your whole life. The real question isn't why your recorded voice sounds wrong, it's why you were the last person allowed to hear it. A circle of people around a hard patch of earth. Someone drops a bundle, maybe a stitched animal bladder, maybe a wrapped clump of grass, then taps it with the inside of a barefoot. The circle doesn't speak, it inhales at the same time. Then noise, then movement. Then the feeling we still chase on Saturday afternoons. The moment a simple kick turns strangers into a single animal. We like clean birthdays. The day the light bulb was invented, the year the rocket flew. We want football to have one of those. It mostly doesn't. Because for most of human history, games weren't born on paper. They were born in bodies. A rhythm appeared first. Rules limped after, trying to keep up. If you want an official date, there is one. 1863 London. Representatives of English clubs met in a tavern, wrote the first unified laws of the game, and decided that association football would be played without carrying the ball in your hands. A line in ink split one messy family of games into two cousins. Rugby went one way, football went the other. That meeting is the moment the modern game was invented in the way courts like inventions, minutes, signatures, a rulebook. But if you ask, when did humans first play football? You're asking about a different kind of birthday. You're asking when people first gathered to move a ball with their feet for the joy of it, and when they first agreed to pretend together that this matters. Ancient China left us one of the clearest signals, cuju, kickball. Ice shows up in texts by the 3rd century BCE and becomes a military drill and a city entertainment in the Han Dynasty. Players kept a leather ball aloft or aimed it through a netted opening. Some versions banned using hands. There were courts, uniforms, spectators, even professionals. You can almost hear the crowd. Across the ocean, more than 2,000 years earlier, Mesoamerica staged a different but equally serious ballgame. Rubber balls, heavy and astonishingly bouncy, flew along stone courts as players used hips and forearms to keep them in play and drive them toward rings. The stakes could be ritual, political, cosmic. It wasn't football, but it tells you something crucial. Humans will build arenas and calendars and myths around the arc of a ball. The Greeks had episkairos, pushing, scrapping team game with a ball. The Romans had harpastum, faster and rougher. Medieval Europe had mob football, village versus village, where a goal could be the door of an inn a mile away, and the field was the town itself. On Shrove Tuesday, hundreds of bodies heaved the ball down alleys and across streams, a festival of controlled chaos, controlled mostly by reputation and recovery times. Notice the pattern. The ball is older than the line. Festivity is older than fairness, and spectators, people who aren't playing but feel like they are, show up everywhere. The first referees were not men with whistles, they were communities. If you cheated, you didn't break a rule book, you broke your standing with the people who fed you. So how did ancient humans play it the first time? Probably not with a scoreboard, probably not with even teams. Imagine a camp after a successful hunt. There is light, there is meat, there is the sudden lack of urgency that feels almost dangerous. Someone kicks a fruit or a bundle of skin. Someone else returns it, not because it's useful, but because the returning feels good. A dog chases. Children learn the angles by trying. A circle forms. There are no positions, only tendencies. A fast one drifts to the edge. A careful one stays near the center. Everything important about football is already here. Space, timing, deception, delight, and the miracle that a thing on the ground can make hearts rise. When the first stone appears, don't use hands, don't go beyond that tree. That's the moment of invention in miniature. Every rule is a love letter to a feeling. Keep doing that so we can keep feeling this. Over time, as groups grew and enemies sat closer together, rules became a technology for peace. The ball was a portable truce. If we agreed that the ball resolves status, who wins, who owes who a beer, then we don't have to resolve it with knives. That's why the 19th century matters. Industrial Britain filled with schools and clubs and railways that could actually get two teams and a crowd to the same patch of grass. Local codes multiplied. Sheffield had rules. Cambridge had rules. Public schools had their own strange variants. And sometimes those codes collided in the mud. To keep the feeling and avoid the fights, they needed one book. 1863 supplied it. Offside was defined. Handling was limited. The field got boundaries. Vague custom became printed constraints. Even then, the line between rugby and football flickered. Early football often allowed some handling. Some clubs preferred the rush and maul of carrying. The split wasn't a thunderclap. It was a tug of war settled, eventually, by ink. And even after the ink dried, another truth survived. Games are negotiated, not decreed. Captains once solved disputes themselves. Umpires were each team's advocate. The referee, like a single neutral arbiter we now associate with justice, Sadiq guys, moved on to the field later, as the culture learned to trust a stranger more than two partial friends. That shift is a small revolution in human thinking. Fairness, outsourced from honor to process. And the ball itself is a history textbook. Animal bladders inflated and wrapped in leather, held shape but not always pressure. Stitch panels appeared because spheres hate seams. The truncated icosahedron, the classic black and white patchwork we all draw, wouldn't be common until much later, when television needed viewers to track spin on a screen. Nets behind the goal arrived to settle arguments about whether a ball really went in. Each piece of technology was introduced to make the emotion more repeatable and the injustice less frequent. But the most honest answer to when was football invented might be this. Every time a community agrees on a rectangle and a dream, a courtyard in a favela chalked with borrowed goals, a dirt lot in a village where older kids refuse to shoot hard at the little ones, a stadium where a billion eyes watch at the same blade of grass. In that sense, it's invented daily. Meanwhile, the ancient versions keep whispering inside the modern one. The chant is a cousin of the campfire song. Home advantage is a memory of familiar trees, sands, sightlines, your cave versus theirs. The offside trap is a hunter's feint. A captain lifting a trophy is a ritualized return from the hunt, a proof to the tribe that risk paid off. If you want a single first, your best bet is the first known cuju. Matches written down. Because writing is what makes historians comfortable. But the urge to kick a thing together when danger is low and food is near, that's older than writing. Maybe older than shoes. So picture this. A dry evening in a walled Chinese city, a painted gate with a netted opening, drummers, traders, children perched on shoulders. A leather ball thuds into the dust, then skims clean through the air. No VAR, no substitutions. Just posture and timing and a crowd learning to gasp at the same second. Or picture a stone court in a Maya city centuries earlier. The ball is heavy. The rules forbid hands. The court is lined with carvings that echo thunder when people shout. The stakes are sacred. The feeling is familiar. Or picture an English town in winter. A pig splatter ball. A mass of bodies shoving down a crooked lane toward a distant goal that might be the next parish's bridge. People watch from windows, half horrified, half delighted. The game eats the town survives the game. These are different games, but they are the same itch. To make a temporary world and agree to be bound by it, to move in rhythm, to make drama without depth. When modern football finally writes itself into law, it steals from all of them. From cuju, a taste for feet and finesse. From mob football, the joy of the many. From the classical games, a love of contest and structure. Then technology presses the experience into something that can scale. Fixed dimensions, predictable equipment, standard signals. That's what allows a kid in Lagos and another in Lima to share a highlight and know instantly what was beautiful. What about the first goal? That's a romantic question because it begs for a hero, someone whose name we can carve. The honest answer is anonymous. The first goal was scored into a story, not a net. It was the first time a group shouted yes at the same time and agreed that the moment counted. It's still how it works. A 12-year-old scores on a rough schoolyard, and every future rule of the professional game exists embryonically in the silence right after the ball crosses the chalk. Was it fair? Did we all see it? Are we still friends? And the first referee? For a long time, it was the crowd, then the captains, then the friend of both sides. Only later did the referee step onto the grass and become the lightning rod for our hate, because hate is easier to concentrate than to dissolve. Still, that figure, neutral, light, visible, accountable, tells you what football became. A way to export conflict into a drama, safe enough for children to watch and specific enough for strangers to discuss without knives. So, yes, 1863 gave us the version you can enforce across continents, but the engine under it is prehistoric. Roll something, kick it back. Agree that this is the world for now. In ruins and in record books, in carvings and club minutes, the same pattern repeats. The ball keeps time. The people keep score. The game keeps us from falling apart. When was football invented? Pick your answer. A London tavern in the 19th century, a Chinese court 2 millennia ago, a Mesoamerican stone arena before Rome even dreamed of empire. Or that evening, on a campsite when someone finally had enough food, enough safety, and enough friends to try a useless thing that turned out to be necessary. And how did ancient humans play it the first time? Barefoot mostly, with laughter and arguments, with rules that were really promises, with goals that were landmarks, with a ball that didn't always bounce the way you wanted, but did something better. It came back to you if your people decided to let it. That may be the secret reason we keep watching. A pass says, I trust you. A return says, I see you. The rest, stadiums, broadcasts, silver cups, is just what happens when a campfire grows large enough to be seen from space. Your bed is 3 steps from your neighbor's fire, and tonight their argument is loud enough to warm your face. And yet everyone stares at the flames and pretends the night is quiet. We're told ancient humans had no privacy, no doors, no locks, no secrets. But privacy isn't a wall, it's an agreement about where attention is allowed to go. Start with a circle of grass huts in southern Africa. The Jew/Huansi set their camp like a clock, hearths forming a ring, pathways threading the sand. A traveler doesn't stride in. He stops on the outer edge, he calls out softly. He waits to be invited. That pause is a door. Richard Lee, who lived with the Jew/Huansi, wrote about this choreography of approach, the way a boundary can be drawn without offense, how a voice can knock. A camp is open to the air, but not to intrusion. Admission is social, not architectural. Privacy begins there, in choreography, in the decision to hover at the threshold of someone else's time. We think of privacy as space you own. Hunter-gatherers often think in time you're owed, a morning quiet that isn't to be broken, a rhythm you don't interrupt. Even in egalitarian camps where food, tools, gossip flow freely, people carry invisibility cloaks made from etiquette. Not keep out, more like look away now. There's an older technology than the lock, the averted gaze. In tiny communities, your eyes do the construction work your hands can. You pass close enough to smell the stew, and you don't comment on it. You hear tears in the next hut and tie your sandal very slowly. Everyone knows, and the rule says no one knows. Some societies formalize this. In Aboriginal Australia, certain relatives were bound by strict avoidance. The classic example is the mother-in-law and son-in-law. Don't speak directly, don't sit together, often don't look each other in the eye. Among speakers of Dareball in Queensland, the rule went further. If that taboo relative is present, you switch your entire vocabulary. Everyday words are replaced by a parallel avoidance register. Different lexicon, same meanings. Language itself becomes a privacy screen. Sound moves through it. Meaning is deflected. You can sit in the same camp and hear talk without having it count as talk. Privacy by grammar. That's wild. But it works because privacy at root is not concealment, it's control. Control over who can claim a piece of your attention, your body, your day. In small worlds built on constant contact, control looks Winter like on the sea distance. Ice makes that even more obvious. Picture an Inuit snow house, one room under a white dome, a low tunnel for an entry, a sleeping platform of packed snow dressed with skins. Families live inches apart in a place where wind and silence reach into the bone. Walls don't trap sound. The barrier is manners. Visitors announce themselves and wait in the crawl tunnel until the host responds. Inside, people know how to turn their faces to the wall while someone dresses or nurses a child. It's not that others can see, it's that seeing doesn't entitle you to speak. Awesome Balikchis are accounts of Netilic life, read like blueprints of unwritten curtains, gestures that tell you when to be present and when to thin yourself out. Once you notice it, you see the pattern everywhere. Privacy is attention management made social. But then there's property, surely the surest fortress. Except in many immediate return forager societies, property is porous. Mat is shared, tools are lent, and a good campmate is one who doesn't hoard. And yet the Hadza of Tanzania show another kind of line. The arrow rule. If you kill an animal with someone else's arrow, distribution rights follow the arrow's owner. That owner decides how meat is allocated. This isn't seclusion, it's a bright thread of authority running through a very open scene. A way of saying, this decision is mine, in a place where almost nothing is mine for long. You can't padlock a carcass, but you can ring fence a choice. That too is privacy. Agency ringed by consent. The oldest houses we've dug out of the earth echo the same compromise. Walk across the Neolithic, tell of Çatalhöyük, and you won't find streets. Just a honeycomb of mud brick rooms, abutting room after room entered by climbing down a ladder through a hole in the roof. Shared walls, no alleys, no doors facing a public square. Privacy wasn't in the city plan, it was inside the cell. Sleeping platforms, hearths, bins. The household, not the individual, became the unit with boundaries. You could live a life inches from your neighbors and still draw a bright line. What happens under this roof belongs to us. Ian Hodder's excavations showed how those interior spaces were ritually charged. People buried their dead under floors, replastered walls, curated memory into the house. Privacy here isn't about hiding from sight, it's about enclosing meaning. So, did ancient humans have privacy? Not the way we imagine it in a studio apartment with a lock code and noise-canceling headphones, but look closer. They had the building blocks of our need. 100 small rules teaching people how to stay out of each other's minds, even when they couldn't stay out of each other's way. And it wasn't just rule, it was rhythm. The day had privacy slots. Dawn for solitary walking to check traps, midday for communal repair, late night for a hushed talk around a particular fire. If you step into a camp at the wrong tempo, you feel it. The moment your presence is out of season. We feel the same thing when a phone call arrives during the 1 hour we keep for ourselves. The resentment isn't about the sound. It's about the trespass on a time boundary we thought others would read. The flip side is that privacy was purchased with exposure. Everyone sees you when you stumble. Everyone hears your baby when she cries. The price of a warm circle is that every mistake is public. So humans learned a second skill, selective amnesia. After a tense quarrel carries across the huts, tomorrow's hunting talk starts like nothing cracked last night. Not because memory is short, because mercy is a social technology. It keeps private what the wind already spread. That mercy shows up in how you enter too. In many small-scale societies, you don't just appear in a doorway. You pause. You make a little noise from a distance. You let people fold up loose edges of themselves. In our world, it looks like texting here before ringing any apartment buzzer, or the elevator habit of staring at the door, a ritual of non-looking that makes 5 strangers feel alone enough to breathe. We think we invented it. We didn't. We inherited it. When society settled, privacy thickened into timber and plaster. But the old rules didn't disappear. They nested inside. Walls amplify etiquette. They don't replace it. You can live in a mansion and still have no privacy if the culture refuses to let attention be yours to steer. You can live in a tent and feel an exquisite privacy because the people around you know how to aim their eyes at the horizon when your heart is falling apart. What about secrets? The deep kind. The sacred you only reveal to a few. Many traditional cultures guarded ritual knowledge behind initiations, gender ceremonies, and story permissions. Who gets to tell which myth? Who gets to touch which object? Who gets to hear a name? Privacy as a gateway, not a box. It's not about a person disappearing. It's about a map of meanings that not everyone can traverse. An entire cosmology arranged like rooms you enter over years. The surprise is that privacy, which we experience as solitude, is maintained by other people's discipline. You can't have it alone. You need neighbors who pretend not to notice, kin who follow a taboo, visitors who wait in a tunnel, hunters who accept that a kill obeys an invisible owner. The most personal space you inhabit exists because everyone else agrees to hold a line they could cross in one step. It's collective self restraint producing individual freedom. So when you lie awake in a little modern box, wanting to feel less watched, remember that the first privacy wasn't a lock, it was a habit. A dozen gestures, repeated until they became a moral reflex. We still know them. We wave without entering. We put on headphones not just to block sound, but to signal, I'm away now. We use sin receipts as doors, sometimes rude to barge through, sometimes generous to ignore. Our devices build new rooms. Our behavior supplies the key. And our brains still ache when the contract fails. That anxiety in an open plan office, that exhaustion of being reachable at every minute, part of you is a campfire animal expecting an agreed choreography of approach. When the approach becomes constant, privacy collapses even if you're alone at a desk. In that sense, the problem of now isn't that we lost privacy. It's that we built tools that treat attention like a commons and forgot the old etiquette that guards it. Ancient humans didn't solve privacy once and for all. They practiced it. You can feel that practice if you step back from your screens and listen for it. The pause before you enter. The gaze you can choose to spare. The hour you can lend to silence. None of that requires a door. Maybe the first architecture we built was in the mind. Threshold that trained our eyes and tongues. Bricks came later, and even now, when stone and glass are everywhere, the doorway that matters is still the tiny one between noticing and leaving be. Because the oldest room on earth isn't a cave or a hut, it's the circle of people who agree, even for 1 minute, to look away so you can be yourself.